We're gonna pretend we're actually doing something.
That's really what life is, you know? Just pretending.
3, 2, 1.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to the In My Element podcast. Today's gonna be fun. I have an old friend of mine. Haven't really spoken in a good minute, but have been seeing her process through the past 2 years via social media and friends. So it's cool. I'm excited to have the one and only Andrea Cordova.
Thank you.
What's
thank
Gucci?
you.
What's Gucci?
I'm so excited and honored to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out and being interested in what I'm doing. It's great.
We met high school, I think, right?
Yeah, through mutual friends, and now we're 50 years old. It's crazy.
Well, I'm not 50.
No. But yeah, it's been a while.
Dreyfus,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Went to Dreyfus for something. I mean, I went for theater, and that was pretty much where that ended. But
wait, did you always do that? Did you do theater growing up, or was that like a...
Yeah, I did theater more towards like middle school and then high school. And then after high school, I honestly did a complete 180 .
But did you grow up wanting to be an actor? Like,
yeah, I did. Maybe not my entire life, but as I got into it, it was definitely something that I could see myself doing as a career. And then once I recognized like the audition process and the uncertainty, I definitely decided I wanted something more concrete. So I ended up going to college for hospitality management, and now I'm doing something even completely different.
Shout out FIU, right?
FIU, yep.
That's interesting because I remember meeting and just for context for the people listening to, I went to G-Star, which was a film school, which for the funny part of it, I didn't know it was a film school.
Really?
That's how ignorant I was. I was not, yet I didn't go to college neither, so we'll get into that like another podcast, but G-Star, I just saw the presentation in my middle school. All that school did when they went to a middle school is show a video of a bunch of kids having fun, and I saw a kid playing the guitar. And I was like, yo, that's an art school. It's a music school. I had been playing the guitar for like 2 years, so I was like, I'm going to go in there. But Dreyfus, once I got to G-Star, I knew there was another art school. I was so ignorant, man. God. And I figured they had I found out they had a music program. So my goal was to then transfer my freshman year to Dreyfus,
right,
which is where you were going. But the whole process was completely different. You had to audition, and you had to be at a specific level, and there was a ratio of students getting it. I don't know.
It was craziness.
Which I was like, okay, that's not it. But that was a goal. My Mexican parents were like, you know what? We don't have time to go switch schools. So, but it ended up working out because now I can film all these things.
There you go.
That's interesting. So you did acting, you did theater.
Yes.
And then I guess now you're finding out, okay, what I want to do with my life. So you go into hospitality and tourism. Was there a motivation for that, like a motive for that, or was that just like, you know what, here's a good career that I think is gonna make me good money?
I'll be honest with you. I started working in restaurants during high school, just to make side money, what have you.
You were one of the hustlers in high school. Then,
yeah,
I didn't work.
Yeah, I worked, and honestly, luckily, I guess, I didn't really have to, but I was just like, I have all this spare time and I want to make some money. Yeah. So, and since my high school was right next to the downtown area, I was like, okay, I can just walk after school. Started working in restaurants, and then I ended up doing community college for my first 2 years, trying to decide what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I was just kind of floating through my first 2 years of college, and then I was like, well, I know I like working at restaurants, and you can make, decent money. You can make a career out of it. I'm going to go to college for it. And I wanted to live in Miami. I found a good program at FIU, and that was that. I transferred to FIU, still doing hospitality. And eventually I realized that when you work in hospitality, you have to work like 7 days a week, Christmas, Thanksgiving, every single holiday you can think of. So, not my scene. So, I don't like that.
But the goal for you then at that moment when you got into hospitality and tourism was for you to essentially own your own space one day, or was it to more manage a restaurant or like be part of a startup? What was my
main motivation was to travel And I was in this mindset where if I'm working for a company and they tell me, which is very common in hospitality, they tell me, hey, we're opening up a restaurant in Dubai, you have to go. That was what my mindset was. I was like, I want to be able to travel. I love the just being spontaneous and that aspect of it. So that was honestly my motivating force. At the time, I wasn't really tied down to West Palm Beach or Miami. Exactly. So I was like, I don't care. I'm out of here. If they say the word, I'm out. So that was really the reason for me.
That's cool because it all stemmed from a hustle you started in high school. And you're like, well, this is kind of all I've known. Yeah. And it sucks you in.
I'll tell you what, hospitality has a
a
grip on people.
I've never worked at a restaurant, but obviously I know these people that work are part of the subculture group here in West Palm. They work in different restaurants, but it seems like a fun environment, you know. But it, again, like you said, it's a grind. Like being a waitress or being a manager or even owning a restaurant seems like a grind that I'm like, I don't know if I'm willing to count or pay the price for that.
It's rough.
I'm down to be a part of like the culture and support businesses.
Right.
But I'm like, I never worked in a restaurant. But yeah, it does. People that worked in restaurants, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they stay there for a good minute.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's flexible for the most part. Maybe not in every way, but to a lot of people, it's flexible. You can make a good living out of it. And at the end of the day, you're always going to have a job, especially if you live in a city or whether it's a smaller city or a ginormous city. If you live in New York, LA, then you have a job, eyes closed, maybe not during COVID times, but for the most part, you have a job. And that's what I was looking for. It was like the exact opposite of going into a career in the arts. Because at the end of the day, you can audition every day for a year and you might never get anything. And there's no stability in that, in my eyes, at the time. And
in high school...
So I wanted stability.
So in high school, you already knew off the jump when you were at Dreyfus, like when you were going to graduate, like, I'm not doing theater. Like,
around my junior year of... because at Dreyfus, they were really, really adamant and strict about... And I guess strict isn't the right word, but just they wanted to know if this was something you were going to pursue in the long run because they focused on those kids.
Students.
Yeah, they were like, well, if this person is going to end up in some movie, in some TV show, we're investing in this person, and the rest of you can chill until graduation day, which was fine. I mean, it is what it is. I put myself in that position. I don't regret it. I learned a lot, and I had a great high school experience, but it's just very opposite of what I experienced in college and moving forward from that.
That's wild because I met you around that time and we had so many mutual friends.
Yeah.
So Dreyfus, FIU, hospitality and tourism. You graduate, right? And
I graduated.
You do that. Thankfully, you're like, yes, I graduated.
I did it.
You go right into that business like right away or no? Or...
Yes and no. So I graduated and I was still a hostess for a few months, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a hostess now and I have a bachelor's degree, but I'm like not really like, what am I doing now? Like, when is my moment where I have a career? As many people who graduate college, they expect to overnight have a career and then they don't. So I started applying for internships because I started to get interested in the human resources part of the industry. Simply because it is a 9-to-5 job. You get paid holidays. You don't work, the crazy hours. And again, it's one of those things where you're always going to have a job. So at this point in my life, my mindset was very stability. I need a desk and a mouse pad and a chair, and this is going to be my life. And I just always want to have a job. And, even if it takes me 40 years to work up, like, that's what I'm going to do. So I got an internship for a restaurant group in Miami in human resources, and that was my thing up until recently. Wow. I was working in human resources, which is so different than theater, than anything.
No, but that's pretty badass, like you say. You even talk about your mindset at the time, like you graduate and you're like, even like high school, like, okay, what can I do that's going to bring me stability? You already think with the end in mind. I need to set myself up for at least some stability and generate income.
Exactly.
And have some freedom to probably do anything else that probably pops in on the side. But not a lot of people think that way. I mean, even especially me as a creative. First of all, I didn't go to college. I didn't do the the typical route. I wanted to, but it was just so difficult. Were you discouraged at the moment, or no? Were you like questioning like if this, like when you got that job, the HR job, like about your future? Were you just like, I'm just stoked that I got a job right now?
It was kind of a mix of the two, because as I started learning more about human resources, I was lucky to have a boss that was willing to teach me anything. Any question I had, she really taught me a lot. And so it became something that I actually genuinely liked. I did feel like I had kind of put myself in a box, because now I'm like working this corporate, like business casual, like let me microwave my lunch every day in this little room.
Same coffee, same Nespresso.
Same thing. So I kind of did feel a little bit trapped by it. But going back to the whole idea of stability, I have like immigrant parents. You know what I mean? I come from, and maybe you can relate.
Ecuador?
Yes. My mom is from Guayaquil and my dad is from Quito. So my whole family lives there, came here, hustled, still hustling now. So I think I've always had that mindset where like I need to show up and do something to make them, kind of the idea of, hey, you guys like made that sacrifice. I'm gonna, on your shoulder, I gotta show up. I gotta make sure that I can show for the sacrifices they made. And in my way of doing so, I guess I chose maybe a more quote unquote boring route, where the more corporate life, again, putting myself in this box. At the time, I didn't really see it that much that way, because at the end of the day, my goal in college and everything was get that job that's going to make you that income that you need. So that was just always my mentality, which you're right, maybe isn't like the fun way fun that route. Younger people think.
Yeah.
But for me, and also, again, I did go to an arts high school, and a lot of my friends went to high school with you and went to schools, and they're all pursuing these maybe they have a corporate job 9 to 5, but they're pursuing these other cool, interesting ventures. And I wasn't doing that, and it was kind of interesting watching everyone else on social media make music and do photography and just do all these cool things, and I was not doing that.
Because you're internally a creative person as well, like
right.
You've always had that creative side of you, but now you find yourself, like you said, in comfort, instability, which is what you were looking for, but in a box. Like,
exactly.
Okay, this is getting routine now.
Exactly.
COVID happens.
2020,
which shook the world completely.
100%.
On so many levels. I mean, even to this day, we're dealing with so many things, right? You decide to open up the Twisted Thread.
Right. So the way that happened, in a summarized version, I was working at this restaurant doing the HR thing on Miami Beach. So we were one of the first places to close down in Florida. Out of my friend group, I was the first one to be let go. And, you know, when you're the first one, I was freaking out. I was like, how am I going to pay these bills? Exactly, and none of my friends were kind of dealing with the same thing. So I guess as the second or third or fourth friend that gets laid off, you're like, oh, well, Sally and Bob got let go, so it's going to be fine. But I was the first. So I was freaking out. For 2 weeks, I was trying to find a job, Indeed, you know, and luckily I found a job. It was remote. It was HR. It was a management position. It was honestly the best job that I've ever had. Yeah. It was definitely a step up. So I felt like everything was right in the world. And then during those like 2 weeks between the two jobs, I started, like all of us, going on TikTok and YouTube.
TikTok blew up.
TikTok, yeah. And I just saw people doing macrame, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's using cotton cord to make knots. And they make these huge plant hangers and these elaborate wall hangings, and some people even make vests. It's pretty. Wow. You can make a lot of different stuff. So I started trying it out. I've always been good at like being able to watch a video and just kind of learn how to do things and just pick it up. So I got bored. I started doing that, trying to make my own version of things.
Had you always done that? Like, had you always knitted? Like,
funny enough, I taught myself how to knit a year prior. I just out of nowhere, I was like, let me teach myself how to knit. And I did. I had all this yarn. And I still had this yarn sitting at my house. And when I started watching these macrame tutorials, I had yarn. And I was like, why don't I use yarn instead? And why don't I just do something a little different, something a little bit more modern? Because I'm I'm very neutral, very clean lines, just very minimal. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really love this stuff, so I'm going to try to make it my own. And that's kind of how everything started. It just started from boredom during COVID. And eventually I started sending my friends photos of what I was making. And some of my friends were like, well, why don't you put it on Etsy? And I was like, are you joking?
At this time, it's just a hobby, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, when it comes to social media, I'm not one to post that much. I'm like really...
You're not like showing yourself...
Absolutely not. I am like very embarrassed almost. I have a hard time with that portion of it. I've never been one to vlog, and sure, I consume all that stuff, and no shame to vloggers and people who are in that industry, podcasters like you now. I love that stuff, just not me. Yeah. So when my friends suggested I put things on Etsy, I thought it was a joke. I was like, I can't do that. That's like, I'm mortified. Like, what if I put something on Etsy and no one ever buys it? Like, what an embarrassment for me. And it was honestly not a good mindset, but I was like, who cares? Let's try it. So I did it, and slowly, it was at first my friends purchasing from me, showing me support, which I forever appreciate, family and stuff like that. And then I got my first order from someone who I didn't know. I remember they were living in Texas, and I was like, what? Like a stranger purchased an item that I made?
First time you uploaded on Etsy, that happened?
Well, at first, it was friends and family purchasing items from Etsy because for people who aren't that familiar, Etsy is a marketplace. Yeah. So vendors, and they specialize in handmade goods, vintage items, things like that. Graphic design, photography, art. So anything more artisanal and art related. So at first, like I said, it was people I knew, which I, still appreciate and love, of course. But I think it was the first time a stranger purchased from me that it was really something that I was like, oh my God, like this could actually maybe work. Like someone that I don't know that has something. Exactly no loyalty to me, is not trying to show me support. They just genuinely saw it, liked it, and purchased it. And that for me, I was like, oh my God, like this is it. Yeah.
Somewhere. So you put it up, you have someone from Texas buy it. So you're stoked at the moment.
Yes.
And is there still doubt in, should I keep doing this, or am I just going to keep doing this for fun? Or did that spark more like intensity in what you were trying to do?
It was such a mixture of emotions. I can't even lie to you. Like everything you just touched on is like what I was
excited,
feeling.
You're like, okay.
I was like, oh my God, yes. And then I was like, what if I send it to her and she hates it? Should I try to take this more seriously? Should I just give up and shut it down before anything happens? And at the same time, I was working my new job, which was extremely stressful. Like the highest stakes.
A lot of responsibility.
I was working for an HR firm, being an account manager for like 7 small businesses. I was solely their HR. So I was working crazy hours and I was stressed out, but luckily I had this as a hobby that now I'm like, oh, I can do this for fun and also make a little bit of a revenue. Yeah. Obviously not much, but cool. Like, yeah. So I did obviously continue making new designs, just putting things up there, making an Instagram, which again, I was so like mortified. I was like, oh my God, am I really making an Instagram and putting what? Like, and having to post now every day and using hashtags?
You're not putting this idea that you've cultivated in your home, in your as a hobby that you enjoy, but now you're putting this idea out to the world.
Yeah, and it's so scary. It was so scary for me, but I had to do it.
Was that friends motivating you that kind of like made you do that, or was it just you like, okay, now if I want to sell more, if I want to do more, I'm gonna have to do this?
It was, my friends have always been so supportive. Luckily, I have, absolutely. Even my friends that maybe don't necessarily would not normally buy items in the style that I sell, still buy things, and I'm like, that is just so heartwarming. Thank you for the support. But yeah, it was a mix of the two, where my friends were being very supportive and pushing me forward, and I at the same time, I couldn't believe that I was finding success, even in such a small, teeny tiny way, but I couldn't believe it was actually working. I fully expected to upload something to Etsy and it sit there forever and never get any attention whatsoever. So that was definitely a driving force. Once the little traction started happening.
That is insane. Because I go back, so talking about you, right? And your process during COVID, I'm part of the creative team at my local church. And obviously we're gathering inspiration for everyone. I'm in a meeting at the moment, right? And I'm just like talking logistics about certain things we got to get done. And I'm on Instagram and I see your post. It says just hit 100 like customers, I think.
Yeah, 100 sales.
Yeah, 100 sales. I remember seeing that and reading that, and I'm like, how cool is this? It was during COVID. And I'm reading your caption and stuff like that, and I'm like, something that she just started as a hobby has now generated X amount of income for her, and she has 100 sales. Which in your post, I remember you kind of saying that you couldn't believe it. Like it was. I mean, you didn't. That wasn't your thing. Like you just said right now, you had planned to upload something and let it sit on Etsy for a good minute. But now I'm reading something that says you've made 100 transactions. So I'm like, how cool is that? And then in that moment, I remember telling a few other people, like, why don't you start this? Why don't you start that? And sparking ideas. But I remember seeing that and just feeling like, man, that's amazing, because
thank you.
I don't know how many people probably have desires to do things. And I think COVID happening as bad as it was, it kind of gave us the time to kind of go inward and kind of see, okay, well, I don't got nothing else to do.
Exactly.
So let me figure something out. And like you said, TikTok was around the moment. So you're seeing all these things. But you specifically you decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing this for fun. And now I hit 100 sales. And essentially you're doing that full time now, though.
Yeah. And funny enough that you mentioned 100 sales. So like I said before, I was working this crazy job and doing this as a hobby. And at one point, the sales came in a little bit more than I expected. And I was working 8 to 6 and then having to craft afterwards, which I enjoyed, but still, I have to sleep at some point. And the day that I decided to quit, I remember sitting in front of my boss and being like, hey, girl, I reached 37 sales on Etsy, so I'm quitting my job. And in my mind, I was like, 37 sales, this is it. Like, I'm a business owner. 37 sales.
At 37,
I quit.
So it wasn't even 100.
No.
What
37. And
baller.
It's just funny because looking back, I just laugh at myself because I'm like, 37, like you really put it all out there for 37 sales. Like you quit your salaried full-time job. And the reason I did that, I obviously knew that 37 wasn't going to pay all my bills, but I had to make the decision whether I was going to focus 100% on my HR career or if I was going to give this new venture 100%, because I was finding that I wasn't giving 100 to both.
The tension was tough.
Oh, yeah.
From your full-time job with all these responsibilities, and then obviously you trying to create great work.
Exactly. And customer service and the social media and this and that. And I made the decision at 37. So when I hit 100, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. It was such a huge highlight of mine. And it's funny that you even bring it up. And that you saw that post. But
yeah, I remember seeing that. It was vivid. I was like, you guys want something inspirational? Here it is. And I read that to them.
Thank you. That's so nice.
And now having you on, it's like more just to celebrate you and to kind of like, see where you're at now. It's inspiring.
Thank you.
Because many probably would think that see you now, oh man, she's killing it. She's doing all these great things, which you are. But to know that at 37, you're like...
Yeah.
At 37,
I think that's my favorite part of this all. 37.
You're like, at 37, you know what? Here's
my resignation letter. Thank you so much.
Here's my computer. Here's my email, Sally.
And I remember my boss at the time had no idea because, again, I was so embarrassed to tell people what I was doing for some reason.
You were flexing your brand. You were flexing that all over
especially to my boss. So I didn't want her to know. So when I resigned, she was surprised and shocked and didn't understand why. And I told her, and she was like, well, can I check out your Etsy? And I told her, and I remember her like flipping her computer, and I just remember, I have it ingrained in my memory, 37. And I was like, you see, I gotta quit because 37. So it's just funny looking back now. And you touched on earlier, it never escapes me, and I never forget that so many people want to start a small business, want to focus fully on their creative endeavors. And it's something that I think about truthfully every single day, and it's something that I'm so grateful for and I don't take for granted, because again, growing up in my young adulthood, my goal was a desk and an email address and a business card. It wasn't to make my creative ideas a full-time job ever.
Yeah, you didn't have the vision you had now.
Not at all.
Like, you didn't have these.
No.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was for me. And if this whole thing has taught me anything, it's that literally anything is possible. It is a lot of hard work sometimes, but it's so worth it. And even if it doesn't go exactly how you plan, and if it doesn't work out the first time or the second, just keep doing it. You have no idea, especially now with social media and the internet. There's just so much out there.
Just one viral video, like we were talking earlier.
One viral TikTok is all it takes.
Which, again, I remind you, Alex is a savage at TikTok.
Yeah?
I'm still,
I'll follow you.
I'm still trying to, I feel like, because remember, we were in high school, Instagram came out, was it 2010, 2011? And I tell people, man, that was such a interesting time, because we're posting pictures of the sky and
oh my gosh,
these weird filters, but it was easy to adapt to. Then now you can build businesses off Instagram.
Yeah, but and then Vine.
Yeah, Vine was fun. Vine was like
I loved Vine.
The spontaneous 6-second stories, and TikTok comes around and it's all these what is it, like Musically, like
the dances.
People are like, this is lame. I'm not with that. And I heard a lot of marketing gurus at the time, like, this is the next big thing. I'm like, I doubt it. COVID hits and becomes the next big thing. So sadly in a good thing, everyone's got a chance for 100%, which is a good thing. But you don't have to, like you said, one viral video that makes no sense can literally make
and it's often the ones that it's often the video that you work maybe not as hard on that just randomly gets out there. So,
which I see you doing reels now too, right?
I am on TikTok. It takes everything out of me. Again, I'm still, I've been doing this for a little over a year. I still catch myself being so embarrassed, and I'm not that person. My personal TikTok, I would never dare post a video ever in my life. But my business TikTok, I do try. So we're working on it. We're working on the TikToks. But yeah, I think it's a matter of utilizing every
avenue you have,
source you have, every tool that you have. Now,
Facts,
social media
100%,
is so important.
100%. What has been, I think, one of the biggest hurdles you've kind of had to overcome in this whole year of starting your business?
I think
has it been the practical of customer service, or has it been the curating of ideas and or a mixture of both? I don't know.
Those are definitely two of the hardest. You always want to make sure you're on top of your game, because what a lot of people, myself included, before I started this, I never really realized how much goes into having a small business and being the sole person running everything. Now, luckily, I do have help. I had to, which I'm blessed to even say that I needed help.
That is dope.
But in the beginning, I was everything. I was customer service. I was the social media person. I was the person packaging, doing everything. And I think the biggest hurdle, like you asked, it was balancing my business, which was my child and my everything. And my personal life as well, and being able to balance the two and make sure that I don't burn myself out, because I feel like that's so easy, and that doesn't really, it really affects the business which you're working so hard on negatively. So in the end, you end up really not being successfwill, being burnt out. So that's definitely something that I still struggle with now. I've had to create new practices that will prevent me from overworking myself. Like I said,
you said boundaries.
Getting help, setting boundaries, even if it means turning off my notifications on weekends, whatever you have to do to create a balance. I think work-life balance is super important. It's the reason that I started doing HR to begin with instead of hospitality, and it's something that now I have to work on because you have to set boundaries for yourself.
That's so tough, even when it comes to, people that run their business or anything that you're doing. How do you, there's benefits, right? Because you have the freedom to do anything whenever you want, but you also have to hold yourself accountable and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I am gonna turn on my notifications for the next 3 hours and actually focus on work. Or hey, at 5 or 6, I'm done. I'm not touching anything. I'm gonna go have a beer. I'm gonna go get a glass of wine and just hang out.
Exactly.
And spend time with my loved ones or visit family. Because I think sometimes you can get caught up in the, well, I have 10 orders to fulfill or 20 orders or whatever that is, and you're
it's also, I think it's like our society now has this hustle mentality where if you're not working or working on your side hustle, what are you doing? You're wasting time. Time is ticking. Yeah. You could have accomplished something. Yeah. And it's really hard, especially when you're working on something you actually care about. Yeah. It's hard to not feel that way. It's hard to not just sit and watch a movie and think, well, I could have gotten X, Y, and Z accomplished, and I just wasted an hour and a half watching this movie.
The Office.
The Office, So it's definitely, I think, again, social media is a tool, but social media also makes you feel like if you're not hustling and working and doing things, that you're doing something wrong. So it's something to always take into consideration. There, again, balance is key. Work hard. Play hard.
No, but you hit on a good point, though. We celebrate the grind. We celebrate I gotta go get it. And
exactly.
What are you doing? And don't get me wrong. I love the motivational stuff. I love the encouragement. I love when people are doing amazing things. But you also have to be human. You also have to find time to just hang out, And I think for me, you hitting on that, it's very pivotal that you, as a business owner, creative, or anything that you're doing, to have those boundaries where you can not burn out, essentially not burn out. So that's incredible, though, because seeing everything that you do, you can get lost in the sauce.
Absolutely.
and then not really,
and learning to say no too. That's hard. It's hard, and especially, luckily in South Florida, we live in an area that is becoming more attracted to the idea of small businesses, supporting local, the farmers markets, the green markets, the everything markets. And luckily for small business owners in that field, we have a lot of opportunities. So it's really easy to get caught up, and then you notice that you've worked 2 months straight without a day off. So it all plays into it for sure.
So you mentioned you now have help, right? So you go from hobby, quitting your job at 37. 37, and then you're now doing it full time and selling all over the world, right? Or all over the States.
Yeah, some other countries, mostly the States, but other countries as well.
That's crazy. Yeah. You bring someone on now, right?
I do.
You're working at a marketplace. Now you have like a actual shop now that you can set up, like a pop-up shop.
Exactly. So for a while, especially in the beginning, I would say I guess I've been doing this for a little over a year, so I'd say at the halfway point, I started dabbling with the green markets and all that, and it's a lot of hard work.
Finding opportunities to see how you can.
It's hard work. It's so much fun. You get to meet people and meet other artists and vendors. It's a lot of fun, but again, it becomes a lot. So I was so lucky that one of the coordinators that hosts these events in the Fort Lauderdale area, she has an arrangement with a local wine shop. So they host 7 local vendors for a 4-month residency at a time. And they basically have a little shelf area. So each vendor has a little shelf. And since most of my stuff is hung, I have hangings all over the walls. Yeah. So it's like really cool. And anyone that goes in to buy some wine, to enjoy a glass of wine, can purchase my items in person. So it's just there all the time. Obviously, it rotates whenever I go and decide to make changes and as things sell. And we do events too, Meet the Maker events, so people can come in, talk to the vendors. We bring out exclusive items and stuff like that. So it's super fun.
Was that always something you had planned for? Like, hey, once you started obviously doing that full time, like, hey, I want to look for opportunities, or was that something that just came to you and you're like, I'm going to take it? Whatever.
I mean, I definitely could have seen it in a far off fantasy future.
You had seen that long time, way beyond.
Even the idea of a storefront or even having the opportunity to sell in someone else's store, restaurant, bar, location in general, that was definitely like a dream. how cool is that I'm selling things in person now, not just online and not just at markets. This opportunity did present itself to me. So it's one of those things where it just kind of found me, which was amazing. So I definitely took advantage of the opportunity. And it's so cool. It's so fun. And again, it's one of those things where every single day I have a hard time believing that this is my life now, because it's just something so far off the radar of my brain.
Yeah, from where you were wired and had planned to. Yeah,
so different. So again, it's a matter of just taking it every day and accepting opportunities, also having to say no sometimes because boundaries, but taking advantage and just trying things out. And I was so nervous about doing that because it's like my stuff is there, I'm not there. It just feels weird because I'm such an e-commerce online seller
exactly.
that for people to physically see my things and touch them and see them with their eyes, it's just a really daunting idea, but it's so cool now and I love doing it.
So you're selling online, making money while you sleep, which is everyone's dream.
Right.
Right? It's like, Mom, here, look, I got a check. I didn't have to do much. And you also now are doing pop-ups and having these collaborations with these stores. Anything on the horizon, anything you look forward to, at least you got planned for this next year? You want to bring a bigger team? Are you just taking it day by day?
I'm taking it day by day. Of course, I think right now my main goal is selling in person, making more connections. I tend to send a lot in the Fort Lauderdale area. They have a really high volume of arts and crafts and artisan goods and artisanal goods. And it's really awesome. So I really want to focus on the social aspect of it, the networking aspect of it, create more designs, and just keep doing what I'm doing. I never imagined that this would be a long-term thing, and I see that it can be. And again, every day brings new opportunities, new endeavors, new issues even. But it's so cool to be able to be on this journey, and who knows what is going to happen. I can't believe it's been over a year. So who knows, year 2, year 3, I'm just excited to see what happens.
I mean, you said it best. You're enjoying being in your element, as I always tell, which is why I wanted to have you on, because anytime I see you post or even design, I'm like, man, like there's a why of why, there's a reason why she enjoys it. This is not just, hey, I'm making extra money on a side hustle. Like, I see you really enjoy the process of what you do, which is fun, because at the end of the day, if there's anything in this life, is you wanna enjoy what you do. And going back to the conversation, whether you're making $40,000 a year or making $1 million, right? And having to work, I'm like, it's fine. Like, every job is honorable, but you have to be happy. You have to enjoy it at the end of the day. And obviously, we come from immigrant parents who had to make ends meet. So
for sure. So
for them to live here, I tell people all the time, my parents are living the dream. They're stoked. Obviously, they worked hard their entire life. But compared to their situation back home, I'm like, man, like,
this is it.
Yeah, but I've been exposed to more here in America, and I'm grateful. But I'm also aware of the possibilities there is. But it takes people like you and all these other people that start things to inspire others to kind of, like, have the wake up moment. Hey, you know what? Like, maybe it is possible for me. Like, here's Andrea, who started knitting a year before COVID. And goes through this whole thing where now you're doing way more than that, Right. So who's to say, again, 2 years, 3 years, where your business goes and where you're at. So I'm just in it for the journey, man. I'm excited that we're able to do this, get to know your story a little bit more, get to know your process. Any advice you would give to anyone out there that's probably on the verge of quitting? Maybe they've started something, maybe they've quit on the 36, on the 37, instead of going all out like you, or maybe they're in your same shoes, and or maybe they're on the verge of starting something. What would be your encouragement to them?
I think my biggest piece of advice is push through the fear. And I know that's something that you hear a lot, even on cliche, motivational posters.
The cliche, push through the fear.
All courage, sure. But it's true. And like I've said multiple times, I'm not this outspoken person who enjoys putting my stuff out there. I'm the opposite.
That's not your personality.
It's not me. But pushing through that, there's so much potential to be unlocked that you have no idea if the right person or the right event presents itself where the things that you want to do just explode. You really don't know. And the thing is, again, I feel like I'm saying so much cliche stuff, but
which is not,
you don't know till you try.
Yeah.
You really don't know till you try. And I think back sometimes, if I would have never started the Etsy account, and by the way, I started my Etsy account and it was like 2 weeks before I posted anything because I was, again, so afraid.
So doubtful.
So embarrassed for no reason. But I think back and I wonder where I would be if I never tried. I would probably still be working in HR. Not necessarily miserable, but definitely not feeling as accomplished and as happy as I am now.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a lot of hard work, but it's so worth just trying and just embarking on a journey, and so many people you meet and so much stuff you get to do. It's worth it. So that's my biggest advice, I think, is just try. Even if it's something that you think won't work, just try and just make yourself feel confident. Fake it till you make it. Another cliche saying, but just fake it, because eventually you do feel that way. You do recognize.
Wow. Make yourself feel confident, like,
yeah.
And you even saying your personality type, like, I'm not the person that's vlogging or giving you 5 ways on how to feel better. Like, that's not you. But you embrace the fact that, well, I have a business and I'm gonna make myself feel confident by starting an Instagram, by showing what I'm doing, showing the world what I'm doing, and again, it's
just
worked
push
out.
yourself. I guess sticking inside of your comfort zone, which is something that I did for so long. I don't want to say it didn't get me anywhere, because I did, have a job and I was embarking on this career in something different. But if you stay inside of yourself and you just do what makes you comfortable every single day, you're just going to stay there forever. Just lunge at whatever opportunity, at whatever endeavor you want to take on, and if you fail, you fail, and you try again. You try again.
One thing I see in you and just hearing your story, and it's consistency in anything. It's consistency in your high school, probably restaurant job. It's your consistency in okay, well, I'm going to do this in hospitality and tourism. I'm going to be consistent in that. And okay, I'm going to be consistent in my HR job and your business now. All those things have compounded now to where you're at, and because you've been consistent and through the good and bad, right, you're at where you're at now. So that's dope. Take it in, guys. I'm just excited again to have you on, and thank you so much for being willing.
Of course. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram. My business page is thetwistedthread.co. And that's also my TikTok, which I'm working on.
Let's go.
Yeah, and on Etsy, it's thetwistedthreadco.etsy.com. So check me out, guys.
Love that. Again, thank you. If you haven't yet, guys, subscribe, follow thetwistedthread.co, follow Andrea. A lot more exciting things to come. And thank you for listening. This has been the In My Element podcast. If you haven't subscribed, we're on every platform, YouTube. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.